It is NSports Day 1, 2014, live from Play-by-Play Sports Camp on the campus of UCLA in Westwood, California. Chris Sylvester alongside Nick Rice with you and the entire NS Sports crew. Once a year we get to do this special occasion, and we are excited to get 5 shows for you each night. Sunday night, obviously tonight, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night as well. Tuesday night we're going to the Dodger game, but we're going to have time to do a show after, right? Yeah, everyone agree? Of course. So on. Nick, this is your first time back at the camp since 2012. Welcome back.
Glad to have you guys on board. We're going to have a packed house here tonight for some big-time matchups. We got Robert Dieters in the house, Jordan Hunter's around, Cameron Sadeghi punking out. He's at home. Brandon Byers in the mix, Miles Walker. We got Jason Garreline. We're going to throw in Big D coming up in a little bit, Isaac Glazer. We got the whole mix and then some, but we're going to start it off quick, Chris, with some big-time NFL action.
Oh, we're going to start it off with our commissioner.
Yeah.
It's not Roger Goodell. He's probably a better commissioner than Roger Goodell.
Just a little.
His name is Robert Dieters. This is our 3rd year already. Can you believe it, Robert? Robert going to start off our week the proper way with a little introduction speech or whatever you want to call it. Robert, take it away. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Chris and Nick. And guys, this is National Sports. This is our 3rd year doing this. We have stayed strong. And Chris and Nick have been here since day one. Brandon Byer, Jason Garreline have been here since day one. And I feel like that the family has grown. And I want all these new guys to really understand that we're all together as one. And big shows bring us all together. Like, we just talk about any sport you want to talk about. We bring the latest news. And me and Nick have done the NFL team breakdowns and covered 32 NFL teams this summer. It's been nuts. But, I mean, me and Nick, we get the job done, obviously. But, you know, I got to give it out to Coast. I mean, these guys are doing pretty well. Jeremy, shout out to ASU. Got a couple recruits. And then also we had a couple guys in Boston as well. And we also obviously have guys from New York. Also, shout outs. And Big D is our new guy. We got our new studio manager this year. KJ had to go home this year. Kind of sad. But nevertheless, we have Big D in the house. Unfortunately, Cameron Sadeghi is not going to join us this year. He is vice president. But we do have the other VP, which is Nick Rice, and also partner with me on NFL Team Breakdowns. And Chris, obviously, he's been the host for 3 years, guys, and he's done a pretty damn amazing job. He's had to work with a new co-host almost pretty much every year. I mean, he's had, Blake? Who else did you have? What was it, I know. Well, it's been that long that we don't remember, but I mean, it's glad that Chris and Nick, they have that chemistry, and I can't wait to see what we put on during these 5 nights. Obviously, I'll give a nice long speech at the end of the week. You guys might cry, so obviously get the tissue out. But let's get this show started on the road, guys. Let's start with some MLB.
Yeah, well, hey, I was just going to real quick just clarify. When we talk about coast to coast, we talk about broadcast camps all around the nation. We have obviously Boston, Chicago. We have all the different sites. We're going to go coast to coast here starting right now.
Yeah, we're going to go coast to coast. Of course, we have the famous coast to coast show with our buddies Isaac Glazer, Ian Martin, and, of course, Jeremy Schnell from Miami. Welcome back, guys. You guys, killer show on National Sports. You guys add Jason Goldstein tonight. You guys are going to kick off the show. You guys are talking MLB. It's the heat of the pennant race. It's the dog days of August, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this 2 wild card thing is a lot of fun, at least for every other team except the Angels, who are right on the A's tail. It's too bad that one of those 2 AL West teams is going to have to play in a 1-game playoff to see their fate, to see if their season will continue or not. But you guys have the breakdown. You guys got the standings right in front of you, and I will hand it off to Mr. Miami himself, Jeremy Schnell, for the MLB segment. Jeremy?
Thank you, sir. You know what? We got to start with the AL East here. We're going to get right into things. We got Baltimore surprisingly leading things by 3.5 games over another surprising team in Toronto. Now, what's going on there, Ian? What do you think what's going on?
When you look at this division, after the trade deadline where Boston traded away their ace, John Lester, and Tampa Bay traded their ace, David Price, away out of the division, this division doesn't have a solid starting rotation anymore. You have the Yankees. They don't have Masahiro Tanaka, most likely for the rest of the year. This is a power-hitting division. The race will just end up being who hits the most home runs. Whoever hits the most home runs will win this division.
Now, Tampa, they're trading away their ace, which I really don't understand. But we'll get into the trade deadline later. The Rays are only 5 games out of a playoff spot right now. Like, what's going on with the Rays? What is their mindset right now?
Well, I thought it was interesting that trade that they made for trading away David Price. It didn't seem like they got that much out of it, at least for this season. So maybe they're looking to the future. But that surprises me because this is a tight division, and I'm not convinced that the Orioles or Blue Jays have this. So it'll be interesting to see how the Rays season goes from here on. Hasn't been long without David Price, so the next couple weeks for the Rays are the most interesting to watch.
What do you predict, my friend? What do you think is going to happen here?
I hate to say it, that I don't think my Yankees are taking it this year. I mean, the injuries that they've had, and it's a lot like last season with all the injuries, barely floating around 500. And Baltimore's really been the most consistent team in that division. Toronto's had their hot and their cold stretches. I just think that Baltimore can take it with their level of consistency. Adam Jones, the way he's played this year. Manny Machado's finally looking back to form. I mean, he just dominated Albert Pujols in that Angels series.
Come on, Jason. You got to have a little faith in your Yankees. What's going on, man? Come on.
I mean, no, I had the longest faith, but once Tanaka went down, I'm just like, oh no. And then CeCe's done for the year, even though he was having a bad year. I'm always that person who's always saying my team, but I can't. Too many injuries, too much lack of offense. Ellsbury hasn't been living up to the hype. Brett Gardner is one of the best players. Sorry, it's my first time. I'm nervous. Brett Gardner has probably been the best hitter, average and power-wise, aside from Teixeira's power, and they're just not getting hits.
Yeah, so we're going to go around the table real quick. Ian, predictions, AL East.
The AL East will be won by the Toronto Blue Jays. Their offense is too much with Edwin and Carcion and Jose Bautista. Jason?
Like I said, the Baltimore Orioles are winning it, and I think Encarnacion's still hurt, and who knows if he's going to be back to form right away.
The Orioles had the worst batting average in the league in June. I don't think they're a good enough team to win this division, and I think the Blue Jays will take it. But this will come down to the end of the season, and it'll be exciting. So we'll see how it goes.
Baltimore has the most playoff-ready team at this point right now. The Yankees injury-prone right now, and Toronto, they don't have enough experience on that team to get through to the playoffs. Maybe a wild card spot. We'll just have to see what happens there. Moving on to the AL Central. Now, we have one team there that has controlled that division for many years, Detroit. It looks like they're going to win the division again. But Kansas City, they're an up-and-coming team, 4 games over 500. What do you think about Kansas City, Ian?
Kansas City is definitely a good team. They really remind you of the Seattle Mariners, a team that has so much potential. They just can't put it together. You have players like Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer who have the potential to be so amazing. They just can't put it together. I don't think this year is their year, especially with Detroit going out and making the move for David Price. I don't see them making the playoffs this year, but they're definitely one of those teams you will need to look out for the next couple years.
Well, obviously, it would be a miracle for one of these teams, either Cleveland or Kansas City, to take over the division with now 3 aces almost on the Detroit Tigers. They have Price and they have Scherzer and Verlander. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City makes a run at Detroit this year. But, there's so much firepower on Detroit that, I just don't think that they would lose it this year. What do you think, Jason?
Well, Kansas City, for them it's about getting hot at the right time. We saw earlier this year they went on a 10-game win streak. You saw last summer they got hot and made a push for the wild card at the end. And really, that's up in the balance. You saw last year when the Indians had a hot September, and they took that second wild card. So I think the division, there's no chance for Kansas City. Detroit, when Justin Verlander's your worst pitcher, I think that's when you're set. And then, like I said, Kansas City, they could make a wild card run. The second spot, it's wide open between them, the Mariners, the Yankees. It's wide open. If they can play what they did last September on that 10-game win streak, that can be theirs.
All right, Isaac, what do you think, man?
This is a tricky one because I don't think besides Detroit that any of the other 4 teams, the Twins, the White Sox, the Indians, and the Royals, has second place in this division on lock. So it's going to be interesting to see. The White Sox have some good pitching. Chris Sale, he's one of the best pitchers in the league right now, in my opinion. And the Royals, they've been on and off a little bit this year. Same with the Indians. So I think the Tigers, they're already prepping for a playoff run in making the trades that they did, acquiring David Price. But this is the Tigers' division to win. If they don't win, I'll be very surprised. But I think that any of the 4 teams, if they can get hot right now, then they can make a run for that second wild card spot.
And I think it's a no-brainer here, guys. I can go around and I can ask you all 3 what you think is going to happen in this division, but I think it's unanimous. Detroit's going to win? Yeah. All right, moving on to the very tight AL West. Surprisingly, the Mariners 10.5 games out right now. I know Isaac and I know Ian, you guys are from Seattle, but what's going on with the Mariners, Ian?
The Mariners have, I believe, the second best ERA in all of baseball right now. But their offense is terrible. They're averaging maybe 3 runs a game, if that. Their batting average is 23rd in the league. Their runs is 25th. Their on-base percentage is 29th. And their slugging percentage is 26th. You look at this team, and when you look at their starting rotation, led by a Felix Hernandez, who's having the best season of his career, and that is going over his 2010 AL Cy Young. You don't know why this team isn't in contention for the AL West division crown.
The wild card, so if they're going to go after that wild card spot, but the first team in the wild card right now is the Angels, and they're 9 games on the Mariners at this point. What do the Mariners have to do to get that first wild card spot and take over the Angels?
They have to get hot. I remember, not before my time, but in 1995, the Mariners were 10-plus games back from the Angels for the division wild card, or for the division crown, and they came back and won the division. Starting in August, they went on a hot streak and came back and won it. The Mariners would need a miracle to happen to come back and beat the Angels out for that first wild card.
Now, what does it mean now with these 2 wild card teams? What does it mean to have home field advantage in the wild card game? Jason?
I'm not sure how much it means because it's one game, and one team can beat any team on any given night. We saw the Athletics lose to the Rangers a couple weeks ago, and honestly, it's really not about home field, even though it's one game. I think in a big game series, you're going to have home field advantage is very important. But in one game, it's all about who's on the mound, if they're confident or not, how your hitters are feeling. Anything can happen.
Isaac, what do you think about the Mariners right now?
It's hard to say. This is an interesting division because the one year that the Mariners decide, well, they want to be an all-right team, they get the 2 best teams in baseball, arguably, in their division, along with the 2 worst teams in baseball in the Astros and the Rangers. So I think they can do it, but looking at the hitters they have, I pulled up a stat earlier today. They are 52-17 when scoring at least 3 runs. So that says a lot about what they can be, but they gotta get more hitters, and acquiring Austin Jackson and Kristen Norfield, that was a step in the right direction. They really only lost 1 AAA player in that deal. So, but I think I don't think they're going to get this year, but they got a good farm system, so I'm excited for years to come. But I think the A's and Angels will fight for the division crown in the wild card.
I don't see Oakland giving up this division. I see them taking it, and I also see the Mariners and the Angels taking the first and the second wild card spot, and the Angels and the Mariners fighting it out to see who can go on in the playoffs. What do you think, Ian?
I think you're exactly right. The Athletics, their pitching staff is way too good. They're built to win during the regular season. I don't think they're built to win in the playoffs because their offense just isn't enough, but they're built to have a good regular season. And the Angels, on the other end, I think they're going to take a couple steps forward in the postseason just because of how productive their offense is.
What do you think, Jason?
I think it's going to be a tight race down to the final day. I think Oakland will win the division. I think the Angels definitely get that first wild card spot. The second one's up for grabs. I'm not sure how Cano's going to do because as a Yankee fan, I see him at hot Septembers. And then last September, he just had a cold streak. But I think he's been a good hitter, and I think he can help this team into the playoffs.
Isaac?
Having watched nearly every Mariners game this year, I have absolutely no faith in them to get that second wild card spot. So I think they're not a better team than the Blue Jays or Orioles. It would take a lot for them to do it, and it would depend on how other teams do. They don't control their own destiny at this point. But it's really up for grabs. But I do think that the Angels and Athletics both have the playoffs pretty much on lock already.
A little segue here. I saw the Mariners come down to Miami, and I watched all 3 games of those series. I went to all 3 games. Mariners did not look good in all 3 of those games. That was early in the season, but the Marlins did win all 3 of those games, and that says a lot. It's coming from the Marlins being 3 games under to the Mariners being 3 games over. I mean, that could have changed a lot. If the Mariners had won those 3 games, they're looking about only 6 games back of the Angels right now. So being 9 games back of the Angels changed a lot for the Mariners. Anyway, moving on to the National League, and we're going to start with the East, where Washington Nationals have a 3.5-game lead over the Atlanta Braves, and the Miami Marlins, sitting 7 games back in that wild card race, just made a pretty cool trade, getting Jared Cozart in that trade and Kike Hernandez. What do you think about the race in the National League East, Ian?
This is another one of those divisions where you have 2 teams that are within 4 games of each other, the Washington Nationals and the Atlanta Braves. I don't know who can run away with this division. There will be one team that will run away with this division. It could be Washington Nationals or it could be the Atlanta Braves. Neither team has an overpowering offense or an overpowering pitching staff. They reach mediocre. It's really who gets hot during those last 2 months down the stretch.
Thank you, Ian. What do you guys think? Start with Jason.
We've seen both these teams at their best, and when the Braves are at their best, they're one of the best teams in baseball. You saw them in April. That pitching staff was dynamic. Irvin Santana, Aaron Harang, he was dynamic, and they're still pitching good, but they've kind of fallen off. And the Nats have led a good lead. They have a good rotation. Doug Fister has been fantastic this year. Strasburg looks to be getting better. He had a great game versus Philadelphia today. Jordan Zimmerman's been good this year. And it's going to be a tight race, and both teams need to. And if Bryce Harper can get back to form, then I think the Nats have a good chance of winning the division.
Based on the games back from 1st to 4th in this division, this is the 2nd closest division in baseball. Surprisingly, the Mets aren't that far back. They're only 8 games back from the Nationals. So, I mean, and I doubt it, but we could see the Marlins or the Mets go on a streak to sneak into the playoffs by the end of the season. But I think it's really, like you guys have said before me, being a little redundant, it's really between the Nationals and the Braves for this division.
I see the Marlins going on a run. I don't see the Mets going on a run. The Marlins, I think they can make a push at that second wild card spot. But it really hurt them at the beginning of the season when Jose Fernandez went down. If he didn't go down, then it would have been a different story. I think the Marlins would be fighting for the division and not that wild card spot. All right, guys, so I think it's pretty clear. We think the Nationals and the Braves are going to fight out for that number 1 spot. Who do you see winning?
I'm just going to go after Washington Nationals. At this point, they're ahead. Like I said, I don't see a team that can run away with it. And right now, it does look like the Nationals will just keep ahead and just win out the division.
I also think the Nationals, they kept this first-place lead. They didn't have Bryce Harper. And I think when Bryce Harper returns to form, that's going to be a big, big boost for the Nationals. I think Asdrubal Cabrera really helps them. I think a change of scenery can really help the guy who, a couple years ago, was one of the best shortstops in all of baseball.
Well, okay, so the Braves have now dropped 5 straight, so it's not exactly their best stretch right now. They lost to the Padres today. That's certainly not a high point for them, but I think that come down to it, I think the Braves are a better team position by position than the Nationals are, and so they'll win this.
Marlins win this division by 2.5 games. Moving on to the NL Central. Milwaukee, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, all very good teams, all separated by just 4.5 games, man. This division is probably the closest division in baseball. I don't care what you say about the I don't care what you say about the NL East. This game is definitely closer, or division is definitely closer. What do you think about Milwaukee holding on to that spot, Ian? Give me your prediction quickly.
Over the past couple of years, St. Louis has always turned out on top in the NL Central. I'm going to have to go with St. Louis. They always find a way to get it done. No matter who's on the team, they get it done. I think St. Louis ends up taking this division. Jason?
I also think St. Louis will win the division. They have the experience. They have the resume. Who knows if Milwaukee can handle a September run? They made the trades for two pitchers who could both use a change of scenery. Once they get Yadier Molina back, his defense and his leadership should help them come September.
You guys have such little faith in the Brewers. I think they're gonna take this one, honestly. The Cardinals, like Ian mentioned at the end of the year, have traditionally played well to take this division, but I think this is the Brewers' year. They started the season hotter than any team in baseball, and they'll finish the season the same way.
Big D, what do you think about the Brewers? I saw you, a little smile creep out.
No, I'm just saying it's about time someone else wins that division. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I thought. That's what I like. Thank you, Big D, man. All right. You know what? I think, contrary to what you I think St. Louis wins this division. I think Cincinnati takes the wild card spot. I'm sorry. I really do. Cincinnati has great pitching, and once Votto comes back, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in that NL wild card spot. Anyway, moving on to the West, we got the Dodgers, we got the Giants. Robert Dieters, the Giants. Yes, he throws his hands up there. Yeah, and of course San Diego, 11 and a half games out of that division. But first, let's start with the Giants and the Giants and the Dodgers. Come on, Ian.
So I'm going to ask my good friend Robert Dieters here a quick question. How many games were the San Francisco Giants ahead of the Los Angeles Dodgers at the beginning of this year?
I can answer that question. It was 8 games.
And now here we are on August 3rd. The Los Angeles Dodgers have come back from that 8 or 9 games back behind the San Francisco Giants, and they are up 2.5 games. They have in my opinion, the second best pitcher in all of baseball in Clayton Kershaw. Only to my Felix Hernandez. They have one of the best young